Hello everyone, this is Tom Fox. I'm the Compliance Evangelist, and I'd like to welcome you to episode 348 of the FCPA Compliance Report. The FCPA Compliance Report is sponsored by Advanced Compliance Solutions, which has the new exciting service offering, the Compliance Alliance. The Compliance Alliance is a three-step program which will provide you and your team a background into compliance and the FCPA so you can consider how your product or services fits the needs of a compliance officer. It includes a compliance boot camp, sponsorship of a podcast series, and in-person compliance training. Interested parties should contact myself, Tom Fox, at tfox@tfoxlaw.com. Today, I discuss data lineage and its importance to compliance. I visit with Alex Tsigutkin, founder and CEO of Axiom SL, and Varun, Singhal, Senior Vice President of Product Management for Axiom SL. Axiom SL is a global leader in data risk management and regulatory reporting solutions for the financial industry, including banks, brokers, dealers, asset managers, and insurance companies. Its unique enterprise data management platform delivers data lineage, risk aggregation, analytics, and workflow automation. We discuss data lineage, which has become a top concern and challenge for data managers in the financial services, and we note how this has transformed as a concern for the compliance professional. In the past, data lineage, a trail of information that tracks the use and custody of data as it travels throughout an enterprise, was a primary concern of niche internal projects, usually run by reporting teams. A combination of closer oversight by regulators and the rising global standards around data governance, witness GDPR in the EU, has rapidly led many financial institutions to become interested in how to do this on a broader level. The implications to and applications for the anti-corruption compliance profession are significant for both transparency and accountability in data for sales, third-party sales agents and payments, data flow in an organization, and vendors in the supply chain. It is a fascinating exploration of the convergences of different types of compliance and how they have direct application to the anti-corruption compliance practitioner. The FCPA Compliance Report is a part of the Compliance Podcast Network. Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox, back for another episode of the FCPA Compliance Report. You are in for a real treat today because I have with me Alex Tsigutkin, I'm sorry, I butchered that, and Varun Singhal from Axiom SL. Axiom SL is a global leader in risk data management, regulatory reporting solutions for the financial industry, including banks, broker-dealers, asset managers, and insurance companies. Its unique enterprise data management platforms delivers data lineage, risk aggregation, analytics, and workflow automation. What they have basically been doing since Alex founded the company in 1991 is looking at this information from the financial services and financial industry perspective. And they have developed some excellent tools in those industries, and that has become incredibly important in the anti-corruption compliance space. So I asked them if they would come on to the podcast, explain a little bit about what they have done in the past and where they may be taking it, because it has important implications for what the listeners to this podcast have to do on a daily basis. So with that somewhat long-winded introduction, Alex and Varun, welcome. And I was wondering, Alex, if you could start off by telling us a little bit about, more expansively, what Axiom SL does.
Thank you, Tom. Real pleasure to speak to you and to your audience. My company has been in existence, as you said, for 25 plus years. We started initially as a technology data management company, and we quickly realized that the data management is a one big sole issue for financial industry, particularly because there's so many different systems and processes and analytical engines that are involved in financial management that it is very, very difficult to find out and to keep transparency of information, especially as information gets aggregated and transformed so many times throughout the process of operations or investment process or any other financial process within the industry. And the sheer volume of transactions, trades, and all types of granular data is so huge that it's just a nightmare to find out where the ends meet. So we are involved in the very important part of the industry which deals with risk management, which deals with decision making and support. And the last decade, particularly, was invested in dealing with regulations as well as with management reporting and transparency, both from the internal institutional side as well as from the government. So our company has brought forward all this homework that we did over the previous couple of decades by bringing to the table this unique capability of taking the information directly as it is in native systems without transforming that information and tracing this information all the way throughout this complex process to be able to see that all the information is properly presented without loss of information, as well as the processes that are involved can be audited and understood by the business people, IT, and of course, senior management. So we have this technology that provides data lineage in a very simple and visual form that demonstrates in the form of a user-friendly graph that shows how each source of information travels, and not only is the source itself, but each individual transaction or a granular level information is involved throughout this entire process. So we get involved with variety of different financial institutions, and of course, as you know, banking particularly was and still is a very important industry, especially after the 2008 crisis, where the government, as well as the depositors and shareholders, are looking to make sure that the banking industry is safe and sound. So this is where we involved with all the regulatory reporting and comprehensive capital analysis and review process to help financial institutions to protect their reputation, as well as to establish the transparency, accuracy of their government reporting, and most importantly is to give senior management within those institutions a sense of control of their data, which is the blood of the financial institution, and have a full understanding of their processes.
So, Varun, the company has a term which I found not only incredibly intriguing, but incredibly important that you've developed. And I think it really applies at least as much in the anti-corruption compliance space, but it's a term called data lineage. And I was wondering if you might be able to explain what that is, and then we can talk about how those concepts really translate directly into the anti-corruption compliance space.
Yes, certainly. Thanks, Tom. So basically, you can think of data lineage as a visual representation of your data journey. So you can think of it as the point of entry of your data, which could be an Excel file, which could be a source system, and the journey takes from that source system to the final report. And the final report could be an internal report or could be an external regulatory or compliance report. And what a good data lineage system should provide you is that should give you the capability to track the movement of your data. So at every hop that it takes, if it is aggregating data or if it's splitting the data or any of the data transformations that are happening on your account balances or any business logic, it can track and give you in a more visual format that would make you more comfortable about the data that you're using to report.
So as Alex, I think, correctly noted that the data that banks and other financial institutions have to deal with is massive, and it's in many ways the lifeblood of those institutions. But data is also the lifeblood of really every corporation. And he mentioned transparency and accuracy of reporting and indeed control several times. Do those concepts all translate over to a non-bank or a non-financial institution? Say, I'm here in Houston, if it's an energy company or a technology company or a, you name the industry sector company, do all of those concepts that he talked about and data lineage work with other business models as well?
Absolutely. I think that you are bringing up the main highlight point right here is because data is data. How it's being used and where it's used is regardless of regulation and compliance. So one of the things that people are afraid of using technology systems is that they kind of lose that transparency factor. That people are very used to controlling the data by themselves in their Excel files, but the moment you move to a technology system, you kind of lose that transparency. So data lineage is probably just like a tool in your arsenal to get you more comfortable around the transparency and the quality of the data that you are using for your X purpose. And the purpose could be anything, regardless of industry and sector.
So does the Axiom SL tool allow a company to have to be able to show to a regulator that our data is secure, it's not being manipulated once it's put into the platform or to the system? Because in my world, having that credibility with government regulators is absolutely critical, that if you show them data, that's really a true picture of what the data is.
Yes, absolutely. So once a company gets onboarded to the Axiom SL platform, what we do as the system is we give this functionality out of the box that any data tracking that you've been using our system to implement, you can get data lineage out of the box and transparency for it.
So on, you've got a lot of great information on the firm website, which we'll link to in the show notes. But one of the ones I wanted to specifically ask you about is it showed something called a controller view data flow diagram. And although I'm a lawyer and sometimes data overwhelms me, the thing that struck me the most is that you show data is really a two-way flow, or it's a two-way workflow. I would say both upstream and downstream. But does the Axiom SL tool allow visibility when data flows both ways?
Yes, definitely. I think the key part is that the system can track the entire data flow set. Now, upstream or downstream is basically based on your use case. So an example could be, say, if you are in charge of a financial product, say loans, and you want to see upstream where all the data is being used, then you are the owner of it. You would want to go in and say, what are my stakeholders? Which different reports or regulations are using my data set? So I would need an upstream kind of a flow. Versus if you're a final report user, you are saying, I am reporting this number X to the regulator. What is making up this X? Is the value of those X numbers that generate X, are they being changed or manipulated? Then I would want to see the downstream flow of it. So basically, upstream and downstream are the different use cases based on who's using the system. But we wanted to build a comprehensive system regardless of the user. So we wanted to give all the functionalities upstream and downstream so that the user can choose which side they want to see. But from the compliance perspective, from the regulator, you would want to show the regulator the entire picture, both upstream and downstream. So that's why that's also helpful for you.
Alex, in your opening remarks, I think I wrote this down. You mentioned transparency at least 4 times, perhaps even 5 times. Why, in your opinion, is transparency so important to regulators or to the company itself?
When transparency demonstrates the original track of data from its source all the way to the final destination, and without the transparency, there is a lot of questions whether or not the information gets mistreated or some kind of interface into the information that gets deviation from where it's supposed to go and who interfered with it. So today, as example, in Federal Reserve, there is a new requirement for the attestation. And the reason for that is because not every institution has the transparency. So the regulators of the Federal Reserve is trying to at least put the CFO, who is responsible for finance information, on the line to attest that every single piece of information that was involved in his process is correct and truthful. So having the data lineage and transparency demonstrates that there is no hidden black box type of process that would hinder the accuracy and clarity of the granular data. And this is where transparency of both the data itself as well as the process that augments or provides analytical function against that data is understood and can be explained. So transparency is really a way of visualizing self-evidence of the originality of data.
So in my world, I would say something along the lines of the following, that you might have a great process, but unless that process is documented in a regulator's eyes, it never happened. And that from that, the theorem is the 3 most important things are document, document, document. But it occurs to me that the Axiom SL tool really takes that a step further, because you have said, yes, you have documented it, Tom, but our tool will help assure regulators that the documented information can be trusted. And so it really seems to me that you've taken my concept of document, document, document actually a step further by having transparency, by the accuracy of the reporting, and frankly, the control of the data once it goes into the platform. Would you say that's a fair statement?
That's a very fair statement. And I would like to add also that when you deal with the huge volumes of data, it's very difficult to document in the ordinary sense of documentation this such a great volume. So you need to have a computer automation that can do this type of documentation automatically for large volumes of data for you, as well as protect the data and source the information once and use it many times, because that concept is providing the true transparency, because the information gets augmented or changed when it's sourced more than once. And there's a lot of processes right now in the corporate world where the same information gets sourced more than once to do different types of analysis or functions. When you source that information more than once, you have a tendency of making a mistake, or computers even and programs make mistakes, and a lot of this can be not only due to corruption but also due to human error.
But I think, Tom, one thing to also add here is just creating document once is an easy process, but actually keeping it maintained is the more difficult one.
That's a good one.
People usually create documents at the start of the system, but then what the final product becomes or how it transforms over the life of the system is not documented. So that's why having the ability to have an automated document system actually keeps the document more relevant in the eyes of the regulator. And that's like a key thing, right? Because if the regulator comes and asks for documentation and you give them stale documentation, then you actually lose credibility in front of the regulator.
Well, gentlemen, unfortunately, we're near the end of our time, but I was wondering if anyone wanted to follow up to find out more information on the company, Axiom SL, or this fabulous term and concept of data lineage. How can they do so?
Well, we have a website which is informative. It's AxiomSL.com. And we, of course, that website has all the relevant information and contact points for various locations that our company operates globally. And we provide a full global coverage for all continents, and company has 20 offices around the world. So I guess website would be the best way to access.
Yeah, or if you guys want to contact me directly for data lineage related questions, please feel free. My email address is vsinghal@axiomsl.com.
So I've been visiting with Alex Tsigutkin, the CEO of Axiom SL, also the founder, and Varun Singhal, the Senior Vice President of Project Management. It's been a fascinating discussion, gentlemen. I greatly appreciate you taking the time to visit with me, and I look forward to continuing the conversation. Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox again. I'd like to thank you for listening to this episode of the FCPA Compliance Report. I hope that through this podcast and others, you will see that the techniques, strategies, tools, and services used in the financial services industries have wide application for the compliance practitioner and indeed lead the way for many innovations in compliance. This month in my one-month series on 1 month to a more effective compliance program, I'm focusing on innovation in compliance. And certainly tools and services from the financial services industries are part of the innovation in the anti-corruption compliance space. So I hope you will check out that podcast. It posts every day at noon on iTunes, Libsyn, and the FCPA Compliance Report. If you have listened to this podcast on iTunes, I would greatly appreciate it if you would rate our podcast, as it would help in our rankings and also help get out the word on the oldest podcast around in compliance. The FCPA Compliance Report is part of the Compliance Podcast Network.